Hey, welcome to Storytime with Ellie podcast. And my name is Ellie. I am your host. And let's welcome Leah Mitchell. Welcome. Okay, today we're going to be talking with Leah about love matching coaching that you do. And come on in, bring it in. I'm just trying to get a little adjusted here.
No problem.
Okay. Welcome. Welcome, Leah. Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome. So you're in an interesting direction as a love. What made you do love coaching? What brought you to this where you are today?
Okay, so just to kind of not make the story too long, but I obviously was involved in some less than perfect, less than stellar relationships in my younger years, and they kind of pushed me down the path to experience coaching myself from various trauma in past relationships that were unhealthy. I sought out a energetic healing coach. It's actually a crazy coincidental way that I found her. I was seeing a naturopath at the time, and I had said, I can't handle like changing my diet and taking all these supplements and really focusing on my physical health when my mental health just is not in a good space right now. So she ended up recommending a lady to me who I started seeing in May of 2018. And it's funny, prior to this, I really struggled with, I was in a on and off again relationship for about 3 years with a man that really made me like not who I am. Very jealous, very not even necessarily jealous, but suspicious. I always didn't know what was going on. He was the kind of guy that, so I was in university at this time. And I had my first round of midterms coming up, and those are just before Thanksgiving. And so I planned on going home after my midterms, and I had like 5 midterms in like 4-day span. I was very busy, and he didn't want to have to come home and see my family and do Thanksgiving stuff. So he broke up with me during my midterm.
Oh my God.
One of like,
what a way to end it.
Right? But that's just one of the things. And it was on and off. Like he was never serious about it. Right after Thanksgiving, he begged to get back together. Like it was just like very toxic. He would like play pranks on me and stuff that were not funny. Like just not necessarily a healthy relationship. And I always felt like I was stuck in it because he had lost someone very close to him right before we started dating. So I kind of won off all of his negative behavior and unhealthy behavior as like, oh, he's grieving. And it really made me lower my value on what I deserved. I like rationalized, right? And that happens, like that's so normal. But eventually when I moved on from that relationship, I started really getting in my what is now understood as masculine energy. And I'm not necessarily super specific to these terms. I think that they've become quite a thing in the relationship and dating realm. But in terms of how I was feeling, I was very like focused on being cold-hearted, and no man could ever like hurt me, and I was able to precariously date without getting attached. So I completely shut down my, feminine side, my
very common, very
right, my vulnerability, and it ended up leading to significant trauma, specifically sexual assault, stuff like that, that I had gone through during that dating time. And this really pushed me down my trauma. Like really, I was going to hit my rock bottom. And when I did was when I told that naturopath, I can't focus on anything right now. And she directed me to an energy healer. And within a month, so at the time I was experiencing lots of different things like PTSD symptoms, nightmares, couldn't sleep. I was bulimic at the time, and it had nothing to do with my body image. I loved how I looked, but it was a trauma response. It raised the cortisol in my brain. And then when I would have like that moment, then the oxytocin would release, because oxytocin releases after you get sick. And that was the only way I was feeling good. So my body became like, it became a necessity, or I would become so nauseous after eating. So I was barely eating. And when I was, it wasn't sitting in my stomach well. So I was going through all of this. I had one session with this woman, and I never had a bulimia episode ever again in my life.
Wow, good. You had a good counselor there. Very good
Right?
coach. Yes,
Yeah,
totally.
no, like absolutely zero panic attacks after that point. So her name is Jillian Schlager, and she was my first coach. I stayed with her on and off for 5 years.
Wow, good for
Graduated
you.
university, yeah.
Yes.
And I had no money to spend on a coach at the time, but I knew how important it was. It was something that I literally put on my line of credit as a
Mm,
student, because I didn't have a job. I graduated university. I applied for psychotherapy without really being that committed. I got declined. So feeling that rejection, I was like, you know what? That wasn't for me then.
right.
And I signed up with her. I went 6 months learning her healing system, which I had been using for five
Beautiful. Yeah, I
years.
love this.
Right. So I know it works. I know the power of it. I learned it, and then I now teach it with my clients as well.
Nice. Very, very great story. Yes. Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I
Good for
didn't
you.
necessarily sign up originally to be a matchmaking love coach, but with those first clients that I got that came to me specifically for confidence, all of them are now in very happy, healthy relationships. So it's
Yes.
like something must be going on here.
It was
Maybe
meant
I
that
can
you, yeah,
follow.
it was meant that you did that and not the other thing. Because this is your,
Right?
what you're
Mhm.
doing. Because you're teaching from their heart, right? What you felt. And
Exactly.
it was, you walked that path, so it's easier. And I'm gonna say it again, that coach that you got seems like, I wanna know her name at the end of the show. We're gonna give me her name again. I love that.
She's an incredible
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah, no, great. And you got it going on too. But yes, please, so finish your story. I just had to jump in. Yeah.
Yeah, so after that, I learned the healing modality, and then when I started working with clients, I started realizing that I have a clear dating strategy, and that the work that I do is specifically with neuroscience, pheromone science,
Mhm,
and
mhm.
then the dating atmosphere and dating apps and how the algorithms work and all that kind of stuff. Like I'm very scientific based. And so taking all that in, I created my dating strategy coupled with my healing modality and my Ferroglow method, which is my pheromone
Yep.
methodology. So I've taken all these things and I've created such an incredible program, and not even just the coaching programs themselves, like the separate offers, but just the program that all of my clients enter and go through
Mhm.
because of, the very specific experience that I have with the healing and my own dating experience. So yeah, that's kind of how I got into it.
Yeah, wow. Well, I mean, that's a great story, and I'm glad you told it because these are the things people wanna know. I mean, you're talking, they wanna know, you know, anyone can talk, but where did you get it from? And great story. So you have a lot of experience, and it's
Mhm.
personal experience, which is always beneficial when you're talking because you're speaking from the heart. And it really does, come across like, okay.
I always like to say, like, I don't just talk the talk, I walk the walk. I implement my own strategies in my own relationship. And that's the thing, is it's not just dating and finding your soulmate, but these are strategies. Once you understand the brain and how it works and attraction and chemistry, you have this for the rest of your relationship, and you can always fall back on these methods. Yeah, that's very, very important to me. I see it all the time, relationship coaches selling self-love.
Mhm.
And I've got to tell you, this drives me nuts because I honestly think it's the biggest scam in the relationship coaching
Okay, good.
industry, specifically because there are plenty of days I don't love myself and my husband loves me even more.
Right. Well, that makes sense. That makes
And
sense.
the reason why women are single is not because they don't love themselves. The amount of women, the high powered, high caliber women that I meet with every day, absolutely love themselves. And
Yeah,
that
I was
has
gonna say,
nothing
I
to
don't
do.
think it's a lack of love for oneself. That I'm gonna, I mean,
Exactly,
yeah, we do,
exactly.
but it's just a matter of maybe sharing it.
Well, I think also like the damage of those statements of like, You have to love yourself before someone can love you. We've all heard that before. But the damage of that is saying that you need to be at a certain point in your healing journey in order to deserve unconditional love, which is bullshit. We always deserve unconditional love. It's not that we need to get to a certain point, pay a certain amount of coaches, and go through a certain amount of trauma and experience and then heal in order to have someone treat us properly. And the reason why you did get heartbroken was not because you didn't love yourself. It's because somebody took advantage of you. It has nothing to do with how you love yourself in your own healing journey. And I think that that is something that women now take all their breakups and their toxic relationships as their fault,
Well, that's
because
what,
this idea that you need
yes.
to love yourself in order to have a healthy relationship. And it's like, there are days I do and there are days I don't. And that's what my husband is for. We're there for each other, right? And I'm the same way with him. I always want him to be able to come home and tell me, the days where his ego is down and that kind of stuff. That's so special as a part of our relationship.
Right, and which is great. And I like the part that you said that, it's true. I mean, we blame ourselves, right? Most women, and you're 100% correct. The first thing they do is, well, how were you raised, or what would you? Some of it does play. You know what? It's everything. It's not just the one thing, and it all comes into effect, and it all plays in together. But I like what you said, that it's not all the woman, and or the man. It's not. It's the situations that we're put in and how we get, and we can be manipulated. Let's face it. And a lot of that comes from, yeah, and a lot of that comes from, we won't get into the sex part, but a lot of that does, because sex is a strong tool. And a lot of times people don't, right, they don't let the relationship grow. And I'm not a virgin, but it's quick to jump into that. And I always tell women, mostly women, to hold up a little bit on that, because you get to know the real person without that. It's like a blinder to me when you immediately start with somebody.
There's an extreme release of oxytocin that happens in the brain when you have sex,
Right.
which clouds your judgment on red flags.
Absolutely.
You feel incredible and you let a lot of stuff go, and it's blinding.
I agree. Nice. Yeah. Well said. Well spoken. I do have some questions for you. Just kind of went through some questions. So we got how you became your matchmaking coach. We have that. But okay, what do you find is the most common things keeping successful women single? Let's hear your view on that one.
I think that it's like a very nuanced situation. So I'm not going to say it's one specific thing, but as we even spoke before we started recording, time is definitely a concern with women who are successful, focusing on their careers, running their own business. And I think I like to say it as, every pendulum swings a little too far one way. And I think with the wonderful, like the reason why I have my job today is because of feminism. But at the same time, pendulums do swing really far sometimes. And I think that it became shameful to need a man and shameful to desire a man and his touch and his support and his financial security. Apparently now, if you desire a man's financial security, you're a gold digger. You're a woman who, is specifically wanting the wrong things in a relationship. And I think that's absolutely insane because you are worthy of receiving, and you're worthy of receiving that support, that stability, that security, that safe space in your life with someone. And it doesn't make you less of a feminist because that's something that you desire. So I think part of it is that world view, or specifically that Western view on feminism, has really clouded how things happen. And then also successful women are so used to doing everything themselves, especially if they're a single mother. They take care of the entire show and they don't expect anything from anyone, because what's happened in the past is they've expected something from someone and they've relied on someone and that person broke their trust. So now they just do everything on their own. And when they want these masculine leaders, they want these providers, they have high expectations, they're not willing to settle, which I love about successful women. But the problem is they specifically, you know, they want this man, but he wants to be able to provide for a woman. And if she is like, I got my stuff, I can do it all myself, he doesn't see how he can fit into her life.
Right. And I think that's a problem as well, where there is a lot of men that don't feel like they're a gold digger. Because a lot of men feel that's their role, to come in. I'm not saying we're looking for the knight on the shining armor, but they want to be able to provide, and they want that. But like
Yes.
you said, women that have been hurt and retract and like, okay, I got to do
They're
this on my
protective.
own. Now I'm going to ask you, what would you suggest for these women that are in this position of, okay, I got fucked. I'm out on the street, got my kid, I'm doing, and I'm moving, I'm going forward. How would you help those women when they come to you with this, to say, okay, how do I bring myself down a little bit, maybe, right? Maybe bring yourself down a little bit so you're not plowing forward. How do you let somebody in? Does that make sense? I don't know if I can answer that question or extra correctly.
Yeah. So the first thing that they need to realize is the reason why their heart was broken in the past is not because they opened it up in the first place.
Okay.
Right? It's because, you know, they opened their heart up to someone that they thought they could trust. They missed red flags, and then their heart got broken. So educating yourself on red flags.
And that's a good one. We need a book on that.
Not trying to manifest a particular man, because what happens when we use manifesting practices to bring in this very particular man, he will have maybe 5 of the things that we listed down. So we will over romanticize those things, and it will blind us to red flags. Gotcha. So we'll be like, oh, I'm so happy he has such a great job, and he's tall and handsome, and he likes sports just like me, and he loves family time, but he's late to everything, and she overlooks that. But he is very protective over his phone and doesn't tell her where he is when she's just being curious and asking. He gaslights her about things. She will ignore all those things.
I agree.
For the purpose of, I manifested this man that had everything that I wanted. And I see it happen all the time. So no manifesting specific characteristics. Manifest how you want to be treated in a relationship.
Do you believe in list? Because I tell people a lot of times, make your list, and maybe make a list of, you know, what you want in a relationship, and focus on that. And the same thing, don't focus on an individual, but I think knowing what you want in a relationship and knowing what to expect also will help you get through some of this stuff. Just like you said, like, we do ignore those red flags. And these are the things that, write it down. And your gut instinct, right? If you feel something, look into it. You're usually correct. But that's where you're blinded by the sex, the powerful tool that you kind of like oversee things because you like certain whatever, you know, you just kind of blinded. But okay, cool.
Yeah, and even when you make that list, you could be blinded by most of those things being on that list, being checked off. But you're so excited that they're being checked off, but that's when you really miss like things that you didn't know could be a problem. Because, you know, boundaries are so important, and that specifically, like you were talking even about like the sex boundary, the intimacy boundary. Setting that boundary in the beginning will reveal who's truly in front of you.
Exactly.
And we want a clear view. We don't want to get tricked. We don't want to be misled. We don't want to be blinded from obvious red flags. A really good way to filter men from that very beginning is by saying that you value taking intimacy very slowly. Is that going to be a problem?
Well, that usually gets rid of them.
Right? And
say something like that, because I've had very similar, and I tell them when they leave, I'm cutting you off, but don't mean to cut you off. But I've seen a lot of that, and I tell them the same thing. You tell them what you that, and you'll see, and you're 100% correct, because they will leave. They will leave. And I said, you know what? You spared yourself. You spared yourself your dignity and how you feel, and it's a good way. And I'm glad you said this, because I say the same thing, but a lot of people look at me like, "What do you mean?" You know.
Yeah, I find 2 things happen. Either a man knows, and this doesn't even make him a low value man. To me, it makes him a high value man to be like, you know what? I don't want to wait for sex, so I'm not going to waste your time, and he moves on to a woman who does want to have sex right away, that's great for him. Those are,
Yes.
we can't judge men. I don't like judging men at
No.
all, because that doesn't get us anywhere. That actually prevents us from manifesting and attracting the man that we want if we start judging men. But I do think that a lower value man will actually say, and this is why we can't rely on words of affirmation as anything. A high value masculine man who's empowered, his actions always follow his words, or he doesn't even have the words, but his actions prove to you that he's interested in you and committed to you. But what happens is when we say, you know, I want to take intimacy slowly, those toxic men, those lower value men, what will happen is they will say, oh, that's fine. But then they'll start guilting you slowly. They'll start making it about like a your problem why you don't want to have sex, and they'll start talking about, well, you're never going to get someone if you aren't going to, if you're going to hold it over their head, and I'm not willing to be with a woman who uses sex just as a tease. Like, they'll say mean things to try to bring a woman down, and the problem is that some women will, and these are not stupid women, these are
Oh, I
smart
know.
women.
Yeah.
Sometimes they do get like hurt and they give in, and that's manipulation. That's a toxic relationship with someone, and I think that happens all the time.
It does happen all the time. And it also, they don't stay. And I tell a lot of these women as well, like, and again, I've coached many as well, that I'll be like, well, you know, I do kind of try to set up maybe it's too much, a 3 to 4 date rule. By the third, even the fourth date, you could see through that man much better, or woman, let's say, because I'm just saying, I know, because I deal with women, you could see through them much clearer by I'm going to say like the fourth date. And what you saw on the first or second date is really going to magnify by the fourth or fifth, and you're already out of there because you're like, wait a minute, something. And I talk to women too. They're like, well, you know, I just slept with him on the first day. I say, but why? Are you with that man now? No, he ended up, ghosting me, gaslighting, or whatever. I'm like, well, so it didn't matter if you slept with him or not. You're better off, waiting. And by the third or fourth date, you already see it. And then you can pull out and say, this isn't for me. Because the flag is smacking you in the face, and you go on. But
yeah, and I think it's really important that women never give men a timeline when that intimacy question comes up.
Yeah.
Because men will wait for that timeline.
Right. And then if you say on the fourth date we sleep together, they're going to be on the fourth date you sleep with. It's got to be natural. And I say the same thing. It's got to feel natural. And however time it is for the two people, that's it. But don't feel pressured. I've had women tell me they felt pressured, right? They feel like they have to sleep with them. I said, well, you don't have to,
Yeah. Well, and even I've had women who want to sleep with them, which is totally fine. I'm one of those women. I'm totally fine with having sex.
Right.
But the thing is it really does, one, cloud your judgment, and two, you're kind of giving him exactly what he wants before he necessarily deserves it.
Right.
And so it's really hard to see what kind of man he is. You're really taking that filter away. So even if you're a woman who's comfortable with having sex early on, I still say leave it several months, because I want to know for sure that he's a man that values so much more about you than sex. And I specifically talk to high value men as I research for my dating strategies as well. And they always say, I'm willing to wait for any woman if she's the woman.
Nice. Yeah. Good to hear. Yeah, nice.
They're not willing to wait for just any woman out there, but the woman, when they see that it's the woman, they will wait for her. They will not pressure her because they want to please her. They want to win her over. So they would never want to make her uncomfortable.
Nice. Good words. Nicely said. Yeah, thank you. And moving on here. Let me see what else we have here. So why do you feel that it's easier for women to stay single? For some women, is it easier for them to be single?
Yeah, so this is something that I've had like a big, like this has been super present specifically on my social media. A lot of women, I even saw a post the other day, why are single women more successful than married women? And it's funny that single women households make 9 times less than married households. So financially, they're not doing better. There are successful single women, and I can acknowledge that, but statistically, if that's what we're relying on, single women are not doing better financially than married women. Married women are doing 9 times better in the household, right? So financial stability, it can't be that. So why are single women happier? Well, a lot of people are in unhappy marriages. That's not what these single women want anyways. So why are we looking at unhappy marriages as the only outcome instead of being like, okay, I'm a single woman and I'm fine being single. I'm powerful being single. So if I'm going to, be with someone, it's going to be that perfect person, and it's only going to enhance and complement my life. But I think that the common theme is when women become single, they really shut down those feelings and that vulnerability, and that's easier than opening it back up and risking getting hurt. And they feel like there's that huge risk of getting hurt, and I see it all the time. Women will say, well, I would rather be single than be in a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Duh. Everyone would rather be single, you would think, than be in a toxic relationship. That's like a no-brainer. I'm not talking about toxic relationships. When I'm talking about the best relationship you could imagine yourself being in, that's getting stronger and stronger through the trials and tribulations, through the lifetime together. So I feel like there's this view of, single or toxic relationship, when actually it's, you can be in a toxic relationship, you can choose to be single, or you can choose to be in an amazing relationship. And obviously, when we think about it in those 3 options, that's when women really see, of course, I would rather be in this wonderful relationship. But they specifically get so focused on looking at their past of toxic relationships and then how it is when they're single, and it feels easier single. And they don't see that possibility for that amazing relationship, so they don't get it.
I totally understand what you're saying. Now, how do you turn that around? When you have your clients come into you and they're doing exactly that. I'm in a relationship, I'm not in a relationship, I'm happy what I'm at. And how do you coax them back into the dating, or how do you help them get back into like a mainstream or feel better about dating?
So I'm pretty specific on who I work with. If you do not value a amazing relationship at that point, then we're probably not the best match. I specifically work with women who are determined, who want to meet their Mr. Right now.
Okay, good.
That's who I work with. Specifically because I have a dating strategy that I need them to be implementing. I take on clients that I believe are there to get results, not ones that are wanting to rabbit hole about a toxic relationship they had, 5 years ago and not do the work. Like, I can talk to you about those hurt parts, and we are actually going to do the energy work to release his energy that's still attached to you, that makes you believe things about relationships. We're going to do the energy work that your mother, her perspective, she ingrained in you about unhappy marriages because she wasn't happy, etc. Like, we're going to do that work. That's a big part of my program. But the requirement is to work with me that they want to meet their man now, and they are willing to do the work to get there. Because I need that level of commitment from a woman when I commit so much as a coach to her.
Yeah, you don't want to battle her.
No, and I'm not.
Right, and I get that, because they're so far to the pendulum. They're so far, it's almost, you can't even pull them back.
And they're just not ready.
No,
they're just not ready.
Not ready.
They need to get lonely.
Right. Yeah, cool. Very.
Because I had a wonderful coach tell me, Cynthia Stant, when pain pushes, energy pulls. And pain, like loneliness, pushes you to realize you're lonely, and then that desire pulls you. I need a stable, healthy relationship. That's the process. We get into that pain, I'm really lonely, and then we get into that desire, I want to not be lonely anymore, so I want a healthy, happy relationship, and I'm not willing to settle for less. And
Nice.
sometimes being single is settling. And I think people don't realize that. Yes, it's better than being in a toxic relationship, but if you desire a happy, healthy relationship and you're doing nothing about it, you are settling for less than what you want, which is being single.
Do you find a lot of people will say, um, I'm happy this way. I love being single. I don't want to be with anybody else. I don't want to be, and I'm always, and sometimes when they say that to me, oh, I'm still clearing up. I think to myself, well, you do want somebody. You want the right person. So when people come in, do you said you don't really take people on that have that kind of like, they don't really want to. Do you do like a intro where you kind of really feel them around to see if they really do want a relationship? So now we're getting into the psychology end of it, but because I have that, I have a lot of people that will say, I don't want a relationship. And then once you talk to them for a few minutes, like, well, I think you might want one. And then like, well, I want the right one. So do you, because when they call you with this type of attitude or personality, I'm using the right words, do you work with those type as well? Like, well, and to see,
For sure. So like I made a post recently and I had a lot of women want to join in um, on an offer. And my first question is, what does your love life look like now? And if they say, you know, I've been dating or it's non existent, I'm cool with either. The important thing is, okay, but do you want to meet? And I don't say, or do you want to be in a relationship? I say, do you want to meet your perfect person now?
okay.
Yes or no? And a lot of them say, I'm not ready. And I say, okay, come back to me when you are,
Yeah, okay,
right? Because I'm totally there to support them once they are ready.
right.
But my specific programs don't focus on, you know, so I have like two client types that I have realized that get incredible results in my programs.
Okay,
The first one is a woman who has been online dating for years. Okay. And I actually have one that was online dating for 3 years. No success, friend zoned by men, you know, ghosted by men, men that just wanted sex, men that were emotionally unavailable, unable to commit. And this happened for 3 years. And she had been in a previous 10-year marriage with a narcissist as a very young woman. So she has gone through a lot. 30 days of working together, she met her soulmate.
good for you. Yay, yeah.
So,
That
and
sounds
good
like
for
a great
her, like
program.
it's absolutely incredible, but she was already in the dating game,
Mhm.
okay? And then I have this other client who I love equally and put the same amount of energy into. She hasn't dated in 7 years.
Wow.
And so she comes to me like, dating makes me nervous. It feels awkward and uncomfortable. I don't want to do it, but I know that
Mhm.
I want my soulmate. Help me
Mhm.
get back into dating and learn the things that protect me so I don't end up with another toxic relationship. I want to do it right this time. And I'm
Nice.
ready now. So
Mhm.
these are the two clients that fit really well into my programs.
Mhm.
If you haven't been dating in a long time or if you're currently dating, that's fine. All I need is that these women have a very strong desire for
To be
their
in a
soul
relationship, totally, I get it.
and
That's
the
the best
right
battle.
relationship.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Another question you probably hear a lot of also, dating apps. What's your thought on what is your take on dating apps? We've had a lot of we had a lot of we've had a
Yeah.
lot of podcasts on these because they're so controversial. But what is your
I
professional?
love them. I met my husband on a dating app.
Oh, good. Okay, nice to hear. Very nice.
Yeah. It's
Do you want to tell us which one, or should you not?
yeah, yeah. So I'll tell you the story.
Okay.
So I moved home.
Mhm.
And again, so I started in May of 2018. I started my energetic healing. Okay. And prior to this, I could not find a man that valued me much more than sex.
Mhm.
Or he was one that valued me more than sex, but there was no connection on a deeper level at all. So I kept having these like typical hookup player kind of guys coming into my world. And I started my energetic healing.
Mhm.
So when I did this was May of 2018. I moved home from university. I started working at a restaurant in my town, and the bosses that worked there were like 5 years older than me and like 7 years older than me. So fairly like in my age range. And so I was looking through one of their Instagrams because I didn't know these guys at all.
Yeah, yeah, that's what you do.
Right? I'm creeping his Instagram and I see this picture of 5 men, and the one in the picture is like insanely gorgeous. Like I was just struck. I was like staring at this picture, like, who the hell is this? And
Yeah.
how do these people know him? I
Mm.
was just like, absolutely. And it's funny because my husband only lived 20 minutes away from me our entire lives, and I never knew
Wow.
he existed.
See that? It was right across town.
Right? So so it's never based on location as to why you're single. A lot of women bring that up, and it's
Oh, yeah,
not.
that's a good
I
one,
lived
actually. Mhm.
right? I lived in a small town. I thought I will never find someone that I like in a small town. I have to go to a big university in order to find someone. No, those were all players and hookups and people that weren't serious. So I went into work and I said, "Who is this man? Is he single?" They said yes. I said, "What's his age and his approximate location away from me?"
But you're gonna ask
This,
for his height. How much-
this makes me sound crazy, but I went to my Tinder, I changed my filters, and in 3 swipes, I found him.
Mm,
Yeah, so
amazing. Oh my
that's how it
God.
happened, right?
That's
And
a
I
good start.
thank God for dating apps because
Yes.
he never knew.
Yeah. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah, no, I see. I think when you go into them like how you did that, I know a lot of people that are in relationships from the dating sites. So there's negativity. You're gonna have that in anything, positivity, negativity. But that is an awesome story. I love that. Yeah. So
So,
so okay, so you got him on the dating site, and that's how you met up with him. And did you ever
yeah,
tell him the story?
a few months
I'm assuming
into
you did.
once I knew he really liked me, I was like, okay, so I hunted you down and you need to
Yeah.
know that. But and
Yeah.
he loves the story. Like what man doesn't love that kind of compliment of a woman
Right.
being that obsessed with him at first sight that she
Well, good
hunted
for
him
you. Kudos. Congratulations.
down. Yeah, and that was in June of 2018, and I had started the energy work in May. So
Mhm.
it's like the turnover rate is crazy because what happens when, and I'll get back to dating apps, but I just want to talk about that process.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a great story. Mhm.
What happens when you start energetic healing and healing properly with a modality that works? And it's not like I'm not talking about alignment, I'm not talking about like just these mindset shifts. I'm talking about really pulling energy out that is creating a fear response in your amygdala. So this is subconscious reprogramming. And what happens when we go through trauma and bad relationships, our amygdala is on high alert all the time for a potential threat. If we've had a man that was unsafe to be around, any interactions with men in the future, our amygdala becomes aware very quickly because we have that subconscious belief that men are not safe. Men equal being trapped, men equal cheaters, all these different things. And so we produce an excessive amount of cortisol.
Mhm.
Cortisol is your stress hormone. And what happens when you release a bunch of cortisol, you actually start to attract men with a lower pheromone because your pheromones deplete and decrease when you have cortisol in your body, an excessive amount. So you actually are chemically compatible with certain people. And when you're riding on that stress hormone, you will only bring these toxic people into your life. Whereas when you
Wow.
heal and you are able to stop producing cortisol because you heal that subconscious programming that tells you men are evil and all these different things
Right.
and
Mhm.
reminds you of that time that you were abandoned or hurt or etc. um, when we heal that, then when we start to think about men, we actually think about that wonderful relationship and we release oxytocin, which is our love hormone, dopamine, and serotonin. All of these increase our pheromone production, making us more attractive to high value men.
Mhm.
So when we do that energy work, we're actually changing the chemical compatibility between us and potential partners, and we're activating our prefrontal cortex. Now, your prefrontal cortex is your high order functioning, which means that it controls your decision making and your emotional regulation. when you then meet men and you have your prefrontal cortex activated, you are able to totally monitor your emotions, and you see so clearly, and you see your desires so clearly, and you attract men that are on that wavelength.
Nice.
Instead of men that are also super stressed out and looking for a woman that they can easily manipulate and all those things. So actually changing your pheromones will attract emotionally available men, emotionally compatible men, spiritually aligned men, like high value men, financial supporters. Changing that with energetic healing, changing those pheromones, and this is why I have the Ferroglow method. This is what actually brings in those really great partners. But even just, and that's why that happened for me, is because I changed my pheromones, and changed my understanding and my subconscious beliefs of men through that work. And then drew in and attracted my husband so fast within a month, like absolutely insane. And so this is why my clients are meeting their soulmate in 30 days, because the second we make those shifts, they're now not attractive to those lower value men. They're actually like intimidating to them, and they attract high value men.
So yeah, totally get it. Very nice. Well said. Yeah.
So the dating apps specifically, the big thing that I tell women to do if they want to be successful on dating apps, because the reality is women in their 20s are like, I want to meet someone, I'm going to go out and find someone. That is a lot of neuroplasticity. It's a lot of intention. It's a lot of integrity. When we are later in our years and we've gone through those toxic relationships, what actually happens is we have the perspective then of, okay, I want to meet my soulmate, and I'm going to meet him from inside my home and leave it up to when fate decides that it's the right time for me. This is why these women are not meeting their soulmate, because that's their perspective.
Right.
Now, the wonderful thing about dating apps is that we can now start to attract people from inside our home. We were never able to do that before.
Right. I got you. Okay.
So the women that don't want to go out to bars and don't want to go out to different places, I mean, there's lots of places where you can meet high value men that aren't bars. But I think it's really great that we can sit at home and do it. The thing that women need to understand is that they need boundaries around the apps themselves.
Yes, we talk a lot about boundaries.
Right? So not spending, like, you'll know how this goes. She downloads all the apps again, or like 2, maybe 3, and she spends a few hours making her profile, and then she goes and swipes and swipes and swipes and swipes through, burning herself out immediately, because your profile has only existed on the app for a very short period of time. And dating apps, matches that you get on dating apps work the same as likes on Instagram. They release oxytocin and serotonin and dopamine in our brain, those neurotransmitters, very quickly. If you are looking for that kind of release through an app to make you feel good, so you're like flipping through, you're not going to feel good, because you're not going to get matches because you're brand new on the app. So what I say is we need these boundaries where, okay, one night you'd make your profile and then you let it sit there. The next night, only 30 minutes maximum do you sit on that app. You sit down with like a tea or a glass of wine, your favorite show, good energy, and you go through the apps and you enjoy the process for 30 minutes tops. And then you put your phone down, and then you do it again the next day. But if we're spending all of our time, we feel like we're wasting our time. And that's when women burn out and they just delete the app and they quit dating all again.
That's good advice. I like that advice you just gave, because I think a lot of people do get on that site and on the sites and they hours. I mean, I'd be out with people. Yeah. And I'm out with people and we're talking. And she's like, oh, that guy just like, leave it be. Do that at another time. You're with your friends, or you're doing that. Or maybe that guy at the bar is interested. I don't know. They live on apps. I have another friend of mine. She didn't watch this, but literally she was on it for like 8 years. She was also married and she didn't date so much, but an 8-year total. It's like, wow, that's like, what do you call it? Like a pathological, just constantly on those sites and dating, and just not like, something was wrong. something was wrong. Like she kept attracting, I guess, the wrong people. I didn't really dig into it with her. But
Yeah.
what would you suggest someone like that? You know, they come to you and it's like, listen, I've been on dating apps for 8 years.
Well, it just means that they're not using them correctly.
Yeah.
And I
Okay.
see that all the time. So not only do you not want to be on them too much, so limit your time on them, have healthy doses of time on them. Make sure when you're on them, you're enjoying it. You're not like, I'm never going to find someone, because that's not the energy that you want to attract people on. The other thing, do not message men first.
Mhm.
My reason for this is any man can reply to a hi heart emoji. Any man has the confidence to reply. Not every man has the confidence to reach out. You need that
Good
first
tip.
filter,
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
right? If you want a confident man, you really need that first filter. Hold back, let them reach out to you. If they don't reach out to you, then they're probably either they haven't been on the app in forever, which is totally normal, or they're not a confident man, and that's not a man that you want to spend your time with. The other thing is, do not talk for days and days with a man without getting a date.
Right.
This is nuts to me.
Yeah.
You're completely self-abandoning. You're on the app all the time. You know, when you're at work, you're answering. When you're
Eerie. It's eerie.
doing something else, you're answering, and you're totally self-abandoning.
Mm.
And that's why women burn out again. And they feel like, oh, I've talked to this guy for so long and now he won't, and he's never asked me out. Well, it's because you're talking to him for so long, he doesn't need to ask you out to get your attention.
Yeah,
if that's gonna get my attention, dinner better be included.
right,
You know what
right.
I
And
mean? Like,
that long talking is no good. We talked about that too. Get off
yeah,
the app. And I'm always telling people, you know, if it has to be a week, you're both busy, you're both working, maybe 2 tops, that's it. Be done. And you don't know who you're talking to, actually. And then they'll ask for pictures, and that's another frustrating thing. I'm sure pictures. What are pictures going to do? I've actually told some guy, because I was on these apps as well, and I'd be like, what are pictures going to do? I could have hacked somebody's information and stole 50 other pictures on social media. And every time you ask me for a picture, I'm sending you the wrong one. It could be the same person. You know what I mean? You don't know who I am. And
yeah,
and same thing with men. You don't know who you're talking to, and you're wasting
yeah.
time. Definitely wasting time.
Yeah. So I give a 72-hour rule from the start of the conversation, not the start of a match, because some people get rid of the app for a few weeks and then they get it back when they're in town or whatever. And so you might have a match that sits there for 2 weeks, but
Mhm.
once he says hi, you want 72 hours
Okay,
with
so you're
this.
saying 72 hours from the time that he says hello to you, that you should be
Yeah.
in some kind of meet form, correct? Meeting up,
Yes,
something.
even if it's a phone call.
Okay.
So because I also meet with women that are like, Leah, like 72 hours, I don't feel safe enough. And I say, no problem.
Mhm.
That's totally fine. Of course, I have a solution for this. So initiate a phone call. Like he asks you out and it's been 72 hours and you're not comfortable yet. Instead of saying, I'm not comfortable, I want to text for another 2 weeks,
You're
say
hiding.
something like, we want to make you more comfortable. We're not trying to drag this out. We're actually just trying to make the woman more comfortable. So say, I would absolutely love to see you. Do you mind if we do a phone call first? There.
What's your thought about the video or FaceTime?
Yep. FaceTime is fine. FaceTime is
Oh, I can't take that sometimes when they immediately want to FaceTime you. Sometimes they're like, and it's
immediately wanting to FaceTime. So I'm saying this if the woman asks
yeah,
only, not if the man asks. If he's requesting pictures, requesting FaceTime, that's a turn off,
yeah,
because really he's like trying to see if you're worth his time.
yeah, right.
And really what I want for the women, that there is that connection. Like I'm talking about good connections where you're like, this is a good conversation. Everything feels really good. He just asked me out and I'm not comfortable yet to go on that date. So then initiate a call. Get on the phone with him, hear his voice, because you're going to be able to tell really quickly from the sound of his voice and how a conversation on the phone goes, how a conversation on a date is going to go. And I'm
Exactly.
all about getting women more comfortable, because when they're more comfortable, they release less cortisol. If
Right.
they get on that date super nervous, releasing a bunch of cortisol, they're not going to have a good time.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Leah, amazing. This is great what you are doing. I foresee this really, like, I mean, I don't know how long you've been doing this, but I mean, obviously a while, but this is like amazing. And yes, you do need to get this out to people so they can learn your techniques, your coaching. And how would you like tell you to get a hold of you? I mean, what would you suggest people? You have a website?
So I have a website. It's also linked to my Facebook profile. Facebook is the most common form of marketing for me. Everything that I do, you can find through my Facebook. I have very powerful content. So I would say I'm going to give you a link to my Facebook, but that's finding me on Facebook is the best way to find me. I'm a matchmaking love coach. And honestly, like right now, December 13th, because I'm not quite sure when this episode's coming up, but December 13th, I'm hosting a free masterclass teaching women how to use my Ferroglow method to
Oh,
attract emotionally available, emotionally intelligent men. So because I'm doing this, the replay is going to be available for free through to the end of the year. When you watch the replay, you get significant discounts and bonuses on my program. So this is like my end of the year sale that I'm doing. So come and watch the masterclass for free. It's happening December 13th on Zoom. You have to sign up. But if you see this after the 13th, I have the replay. Just pop into my DMs, ask me for the replay, and then you get those bonuses.
okay, perfect. Yeah, that's great. And we'll also, when we do air this, we'll have also links. I'll get more
Okay,
information from you where they can click on that as well.
great.
Yeah, yeah, wow, great. Now you're going to record that class with everybody?
Yes,
It's going to be
there will
recorded.
be replays. Mhm.
Okay, all right. And that's going to be the 13th.
Yes, 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, cool. All right. Well, Leah, it was great talking to you. You have a lot of knowledge, a lot of I'm excited for you because I think this is a great opportunity, and I think you're going to help a lot of people with the relationships. And I like your structure, how you do it. I think it's great. Yeah, very cool.
Much. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for having me
Yes.
and hosting this.
Thank you as well.